Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Steve the Hurricane Weiss on the line, and he is CEO of Home Care Evolution. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Adam. This is a pleasure.
All right, man. So I'm looking at your setup right now. Looks great. Is that a green screen with the hurricane, or is that your wall?
That is my actual wall. So, you see me touching it. This is my actual desk behind me. It's a funny story that when I first came in here, I was in another office space and the landlord asked us to move. And I said to him, when we move, you're buying those hurricanes because they're like $900 a piece and they're all over my office. But I like to be real and authentic. I don't need a green screen. So.
Oh man, that's awesome, man. Hurricanes behind you. I get just to kick this off. Got to know, where'd the hurricane name come from?
So it is a funny story. A lot of people ask me because I'm a big guy, right? I work out regularly. People think that I'm like, are you a wrestler? Were you a boxer or something? No, it was actually my old business partner in 2006. I was his director of business development. And when he had hired me, he had no idea what I was going to do for his company. And so I quickly went out and quadrupled the revenue that he was generating in 6 months. And so he gave me a raise. And I said, if you're going to pay me what I'm worth, because it was a crazy high raise, I said, if you're going to pay me what I'm worth, I'm going to be a force of nature out there. And he goes, I want you to be a hurricane. And so from that moment forward, I've been called Steve the Hurricane ever since.
Oh man, that's awesome. Great story. And so we'll get this episode started the way we get them all started with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Steve, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. What mission matters to you?
What mission matters to me is being able to help seniors age in place with dignity and grace. When you look at what's going on in the world, especially now with the pandemic coming to an end, seniors are isolated. Seniors are cut off from the rest of society. The way the culture is you get up, you make money, you work. Once you retire, then it's forget about you. You're not important. And these seniors, these are our parents. These are our grandparents. These are our elderly. These are the people who raised us and they set the tone for the generations in power now. Well, I don't want to just cast them aside and forget about them. They need help. If they need physical help, I get up every single day to make sure that they can get the care that they need, that the providers who provide that care are giving it at the utmost highest level they possibly can. And everyone's able to have a successful outcome, which is living at home for as long as they possibly can, even if that's where somebody ultimately passes away. I truly believe that if someone has the ability to pass away in the comfort of their home, that is a successful outcome.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I was excited to have you on the show today was to really kind of talk about that and what the future of home care for the elderly can look like, because what we've been doing maybe as a society that's been kind of status quo, I think there's just so much room for improvement. And as we all age, I mean, this affects us all. So I know you're one of the guys that are out there that are really working on this topic. And this issue. So I'm excited to get your take on what is possible and also what you're doing at Home Care Evolution to make this a reality even today. But let's start off maybe a little bit earlier in your career, just to get a feel for like, how did you get started as an entrepreneur and really on this journey?
So it really started out in 2005. So you heard me mention my old business partner, Brian. So I came on in 2005 as his director of business development. He owned a private pay home care company. Basically, grandma gets sick, grandma needs help in the home, and you're not able to be there to help her. You pay for somebody to come in, and then they provide services, cooking, cleaning, running errands, get her to doctor's appointments, or even what's called personal care. We're literally helping her take a bath, helping her get dressed, helping her with physical therapy exercises, making sure she's taking her medications, etc. And so when I came on with this company, I don't know. It was the perfect blend for me. I went to school to be a pastor. So I have that minister professional training, which is empathetic with the patients. And then I always had sales and marketing positions all my life prior to. So when I came in, it was a perfect blend. I had to develop relationships with referral sources, doctors' offices, hospitals, et cetera, places where they had these patients that needed help when they went home. And then I had to go and meet with the patients and get them to sign on the services with us and then provide it. So it goes way back to then. And that's how I got in this field. And it's been just such a rewarding thing. I can go to sleep at night every single night knowing that I have literally helped hundreds of thousands of people over the last 15, 16 years of my life get the care that they need so they can age in place.
Yeah. And so, I'm glad you bring up your tenure in this field, because we all know, it's a pretty booming field. So senior care and other ways and healthcare just in general, what's going on. But you've been in this for a long time now, well over a decade, as you mentioned. That being said, what kind of, as this evolution from where you started to where it's at now, what kind of things have you noticed?
So there's definitely a trend. And the biggest thing I can tell every person out there is you got to try your hardest to have resources. All right. Meaning money. This stuff is not cheap. A lot of times when people plan for their retirement, they're planning for their retirement for traveling the world and living expenses, but they don't set aside enough for the medical expenses that Medicare does not cover. So if you're relying on the government for support, you're only going to get so much help. They only cover this much. And it's not the government's fault. There's so many people that they can only provide this much. And so if you need beyond this, you're going to have to come up with the resources on your own. So I can definitely tell you that as cost of living is going up, the prices of getting nurses, the prices of getting caregivers is also going up because the compensation to pay those people is going up. So you have to make sure you plan for this stuff. I would recommend any person age 50 and above to get long-term care insurance. Start paying for it now. Yes, it's not cheap. Yes, it costs money, but it covers all of the expenses that Medicare doesn't, and you'll be set for the rest of your life from a medical needs standpoint.
Yeah, long-term care, that's definitely a big topic and something that people should consider. I remember, so in my past career, I was in finance for almost 14 years, and that was always a big discussion. It was basically, do you want to pay for it? Do you not want to pay for it? And it's one of those things you put off. It gets more expensive over time. There's a lot of things that go into it. But if you're thinking about what it looks like to age, and also to age in place, right, which is one of the things we'll be going further into, covering that cost, that's a thing. And that's not getting, I'm just my opinion, I don't think it's getting cheaper anytime sooner, as you mentioned, with wages going up, but also everything in the whole healthcare system as a whole becoming a little bit more complex. And I don't think costs are going down anytime soon. So that planning, totally important. I'm glad you brought that up.
And, one thing I'll add to that too, Adam, as you're going through that is just look at the time we're filming this right now today. Yeah. The average price of an assisted living, which is something that a lot of people move into. So we're talking about home care, but just putting it into perspective. An assisted living, to move into an assisted living, the average price coast to coast in the United States right now is $7,500 a month. That's average. So $7,500 a month, we're talking about $90,000 a year is what people are paying to live in an assisted living. It's definitely going up. And it's because of, again, to provide the right level of care to keep people home so they can age in place with dignity and grace. It takes resources.
So let's transition a bit here. I think just to start, let's go into Home Care Evolution. So tell us a little bit more about the company.
So I'm very excited about Home Care Evolution because my parent company, Hurricane Marketing Enterprises, I started it in 2012. So my whole history, as you heard me say before, I was the director of business development in 2005. Through 2009 for this company. It was called Care Choice. It was a private duty home care company. In 2009, I became the vice president, part owner. 2011, we flipped and sold that company for several $1 million. That's when, for the next 12 months, I stayed on with the people who purchased the company, and I continued to evolve and develop programs to help that organization grow. afterwards on June 20th, 2012, so like I said, my 10-year anniversary year is when I started Hurricane Marketing Enterprises with a focus on helping these home care businesses grow the sales and marketing side of their business. Well, over the last 10 years' time, I started to realize that they needed help with not just the sales and marketing, but the operations, the finances, finding and recruiting and getting good caregivers to do the work for their patients to improve the outcomes, even exit planning. And so as a result, that's why I've changed my company name now to Home Care Evolution, because we help these businesses adapt to changing circumstances. One thing that everybody can agree, whether you're in the industry or not, COVID-19 threw a lot of changes at people.
Yeah.
In healthcare, those changes came literally every single week. There's new changes that you have to deal with. So we help them to be able to adapt to these changes quickly and continue to provide the same superior service, so that then once they're adapting, now their business is completely transformed. The way that they did things yesterday are no longer optional. They've now transformed. Everybody's on board and they're able to execute so that they can thrive for many years to come, providing the very best level of care to keep our seniors home and safe and sound, which is where they want to be.
So I want to maybe break this conversation up into kind of two different paths, if you will. So obviously there's the standpoint of those that'll watch this that are either, they're planning for, a parent, a grandparent, and maybe what their care is going to look like. So let's just call that on the consumer side. You have a very unique vantage point with your experience. But then on the other side, the companies that you're actually working with in the day-to-day in the home care field, they may not have access or necessarily always know what's possible when working with a company like yours, because sometimes, and not picking on anybody, I mean, in businesses, sometimes, they start small, they get bigger, and then you maybe sometimes fall into this is the way we've always done it kind of mindset. And so you don't always
100%.
know what's possible. So working with a company like yours that works with many different home care companies, you have the benefit of having, the vantage point of seeing what many companies are doing and kind of taking the best and refining the process and repeating. So you have a very unique advantage, I feel. So I feel like they're two different conversations. So I'd like to start the conversation maybe on the consumer side, from the standpoint of there's somebody watching this that is either going to, they're planning for somebody and what it's going to look like for them to age in place in dignity. What are some of the things that they should be thinking about or considering?
So the first thing you have to think about, again, comes to planning it. And then second thing after you plan it, and even more important than planning it, is put things into motion early. The earlier you start, the better. Now, I know it's a hard thing. A lot of times people are thinking, Mom, her memory isn't as good as it once was. Or you talk to Mom on the phone, but you don't see her all the time. And so maybe like a month might go by from seeing Mom. And so as you're talking to her on the phone, she sounds good. She seems sharp. She's telling you everything is great. Then all of a sudden you come and you see Mom, and it's taken her a long time to walk from the living room to the kitchen. Or you see her getting up to go to the bathroom and it takes a big effort just to get out of that chair. That's when you want to start bringing in care. We talked about financial at the very beginning and how much this stuff costs. It is far less money to bring in care early at a smaller amount of hours, get used to having somebody come and help out with some of the non-physical things. Let somebody grocery shop. Let somebody keep the house clean. Let somebody cook some meals. You don't have to have a home health aide to do those items. That could be a friend. That could be a neighbor. That could be somebody under the table. That could be somebody who lives in the area who's coming over and just checking on the loved one. But that can prevent a major medical condition from happening. That could prevent an unnecessary fall from happening, which will then cost tens of thousands of dollars to get adequate care, because now it's a total care situation. So the sooner you get care, when you're feeling it's right, chances are it is the right time.
Yeah. And another thing it provides, and I guess this is kind of a funny way of saying it, but it's boots on the grounds too. Like you can see now, like, so now you also, obviously you're on the phone, or you may see, your loved one every once in a while, depending on frequency. But if you have somebody working daily or whatever the cadence is, right, weekly, whatever it is, to do some of those other things, you have another perspective of what's actually going on too, especially with some of the things that you mentioned, like mentally or forgetting or things like that. Like you have a second opinion now that you can also have a conversation about, where it's not just you making the decision of, is something going on? Is there something that we need to get checked out?
Exactly. I'll add to that, we used to call it at Care Choice, we used to call it the peace of mind guarantee. So you're the son, you're the daughter, you live out of state. So you may not see your parent, but maybe once every 3 or 4 months, right? So in the back of your head, as you're speaking to mom doesn't sound so good. Or last time I saw her, you're worried that as you're going about your business, and who are the son and daughters, by the way? We're talking about people in their 50s and 60s, because the patients themselves, they're 70 and above, right? So you're in your 50s and 60s, you're getting ready for retirement. You're probably a parent or a grandparent yourself, and you're worried about your elderly parent. And so this gives you peace of mind knowing that there's somebody there checking on them. And if anything happens or there's a decline in health, like say mom is at this level and all of a sudden she's starting to slip a little bit and she needs more assistance with things, I can always add to the level of care that she's currently getting. But again, that's far less of a expense to get small amounts of care than waiting for something like she fell and she broke her hip and now she's completely bed bound and she needs help round the clock. Now you're talking tens of thousands of dollars, and you have to drop everything, get on a plane, fly out there and coordinate all of this stuff. Early starting of care, early prevention is the best way to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so now taking us maybe a little bit further through the cycle. So one thing, plan early, which I think is a great tip. Let's talk about maybe if somebody's a little bit further along, what should they be thinking about?
So one of the biggest things that comes up as we're talking about planning early and getting care in place early is you're going to get resistance, right? Like you have to realize the number one fear that the elderly have, and we're talking again, we're not talking about 60-year-olds. We're talking about like 75 and beyond here, right? 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds. They're not afraid of death, or maybe they are, but they're not because they're close to the end. They're more accepting of it. Their biggest fear is losing independence. I don't want somebody to have to give me a shower. I don't want somebody to have to help me get dressed. That is their biggest fear. And so as a result, when it comes to getting care in place, you're going to have some difficult conversations talking about, mom, I know you don't want this, but you might need this. So again, back to that early preparation with it. Getting somebody to come in to help with the non-personal care things, I find, is the easiest way to go about getting the care. So it's let somebody come in and run groceries for you. Let somebody come in and take you places. You want to go shopping at the mall? By all means. When I think back to some of the clients I took care of personally back when I had my company, I love the clients that use what's called companion level care, meaning they were physically okay, but they had somebody that take them around. Maybe their spouse passed away 3 or 4 years ago and they have no interaction with anybody on the outside. All of a sudden, this caregiver comes in. Now you can go shopping again. You can go back. You can go to the movies again if you want to, like you used to. You can go to a restaurant. You have somebody there with you and you're sharing in it together. My own mother, who is a young lady, but she unfortunately had a permanent disability. She's 65 years old, and she's had a caregiver for the last 5 years coming into the house. Anita, her caregiver, Andrea, her caregiver, is a godsend, and she loves Andrea. And they go to Dunkin' Donuts and they have a cup of coffee, or they go to the park when the weather is nice. Andrea constantly comes in and brings something that she found at the shop for her when she comes in, and they have a great relationship. If it wasn't for Andrea, my mother would probably be by herself in her home unless we were able to come over, which is like once a week, once every 2 weeks. So I'm glad that she has someone there for her. It gives me peace of mind, and it gives her somebody that she can interact with daily.
Ah, these are all great tips, Steve, and I know we're just scratching the surface on some of this, but I do want to spend some time on the other side of things, talking maybe directly to let's just say the business side of this, the home care companies that are out there that maybe are kind of doing things the way they've done. They're successful, they're growing, obviously big market, but they're always looking to improve and to sharpen their sword or refine their processes and what they're doing. Like, what are some of the things that, and not to oversimplify this, because I know every company is going to be different size, different founders, different like specialties, but what are some of the things as they're kind of going through the process of if it makes sense to work with Home Care Evolution that they should be considering?
You hit the nail on the head. Specializing is definitely one of the things that I highly recommend. When you think about it from a layman perspective,
Yeah.
if you go to your primary care physician and you have stomach issues, your primary care physician is going to make a recommendation to go see a gastroenterologist, somebody who specializes in stomach and digestive issues to help you with your situation. Well, the same thing goes in home care. Because there's so many different situations and so many different diagnoses and positions that people are in. Some people have dementia. Some people had a massive stroke. Some people had a hip replacement, which is an orthopedic procedure. Some people have congestive heart failure, which is a cardiac condition. Some people have Parkinson's disease, which is a neurological disorder. Specializing will make it for two things. One, you become the niche in your market. So anybody who has those specific conditions will come to you. On the flip side, it also makes it better for the consumer because your entire business model is around catering to that person with that type of a condition. So when you think about strokes, for example, strokes is the number 4 leading cause of death. So when you think about it, by the amount of seniors that are in your area, number 4 leading cause of death, there are a lot of people that have strokes in your area. You can build a great business providing care for maybe 50, 75, 100 patients who are in your service area who had a massive stroke, who need help round the clock. And for them, they're happy because if it wasn't for you, they'd have to move into a nursing home or stay in a hospital, which is going to not only cost more money, but most people want to remain home. So it's a win-win by specializing. And for anybody out there who's thinking about getting into this business, it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, as we're talking here, Adam, the population of the United States, even around the world, but the United States specifically, the reason why the baby boom generation is called the baby boom, because there's more baby boomers than any other generation, including those after millennials, Generation Xers, etc. These are our parents. These are our grandparents we're talking about. They're also the ones that have the most amount of resources, right? So when you look at all the wealth in the United States, the elderly are the ones that have the most amount of resources. So you have the largest population, you have the people who have the most amount of resources, and as they age, they're going to need more help. This is why the financial industry has called these next 10 to 20 years the silver tsunami. Because it's all the people with the resources aging who are going to need care in place over these next 20 years. You definitely want to be a part of that.
I've seen it, and I've talked to quite a few in the home care business, and we've interviewed and we brought them on the show. We have a lot of people. We do a lot of different things in healthcare from many different angles, I would say, and I see it. I see what's happening. And as I think about it, and, as my mother gets up there in age and she goes further and we start the planning for her, and I'm starting to get to that age, like we're all aging together, depending on where you're at. Right. But as all of that happens, I see it and it becomes more real to me. And I see like the opportunity there on the business side. And speaking of that part of it, it's like, as people are scaling, as they're thinking about their niches or even whatever models they're going to go at, it seems to me like there's a ton of opportunity, but there's different ways to approach it. So meaning some are choosing a franchise model, some are choosing, ground up, some are maybe purchasing a business and trying to, grow that. From your perspective, like what are you kind of seeing out there in terms of, I don't know if I should say the word, not layout, model. What kind of models are you seeing in your doors at Home Care Evolution that are kind of working?
So I'm so glad that you asked this question, and it's a great one because there's so many different.
There's a
There's a
lot.
lot here. All right, so I'll start from the top. Right, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about getting into home care business.
Hmm.
Why should I get into it? Well, the biggest thing that I'll say is in the last 2 years, it's become a very exciting time from the business opportunity side. With the pandemic being what it was and all the things that have happened there with it, you had all these people who were like, well, I was going to open up a restaurant. I was going to open up a dry cleaner or a gym or some other business model. And then all of a sudden people sat back and started thinking, ooh, I need to have a business model that's pandemic proof.
Hmm.
Home care is pandemic proof. As a matter of fact, I think back to 2009, 10, and 11, which was the Great Recession, as we all know, when the housing market bubble burst and everybody was getting laid off. The economy doesn't dictate healthcare. The strokes don't care what's going on in the economy. If someone's going to get a stroke, they're going to get a stroke. If someone's going to fall and break their hip, they're going to fall and break their hip. It doesn't matter what's going on in the economy. So the economy doesn't dictate healthcare. The pandemic doesn't dictate healthcare. As a matter of fact, keeping people out of the hospital was a vital thing during this period. So as a result, home care is on the map. Now, that said, to your point, do I join a franchise? Do I go out on my own? Do I buy another company? And I'm going to say that's up to the individual. If somebody's buying another company, you got to realize you have to have resources to buy another company. I will say that in America, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, offers great rates for those. You got to have a 20% down payment. So if I'm looking to buy a business that's already turning a good profit and I want to buy it, it's going to cost me about $2 million, $2.5 million. So if I have $400,000, $500,000, that's a 20% down payment. If I can get the SBA loan, I can buy a business that's profitable from day one in 3 to 5 years, pay that loan back, continue to scale and grow it, and I'm making profit from the beginning. On the flip side, I don't have a lot of resources. Well, then in that case, I would recommend going with a franchise if you can. When you go with a franchise, expect to spend $50,000, $60,000 to buy into that franchise. Expect to have a solid $90,000, $100,000 first year operating expenses and a little bit of a cushion just to get things going until the business becomes profitable. And then for those who don't have that kind of resources, because I just said you need about $150,000 to get going through a franchise, you can do it on your own. I've seen people do it part-time, but it's going to take a much longer period of time. So I think about some of the clients that I've had who started working with me when they were still full-time job working somewhere else. They developed and got their license on their own, spent maybe $10,000, $12,000 to get going. And then they took care of one client at a time and slowly grew their census. About 5 or 10 clients, was able to quit their job and then go full-time into the business. But those are the 3 ways to get into this business. And it all depends on the individual. If I had my way of doing it, I would probably go with the first option, which is buying an existing business. Secondary, going with the $150,000 model and getting in with the franchise, or being an independent, but still having that kind of resources to open up, hire the right amount of staff, and get things going right away. That's what I would do if it was me.
Man, you taught a master class on home care today and how to get in the business. Where's the coaching program at, Hurricane?
Right here, Home Care Evolution.
No. So speaking of Home Care Evolution, what type of, and I wanted to get a layout for the different types of businesses that are out there in different sizes. What type of clients do you find get the most value out of working with you and your team at Home Care Evolution? Is it only for larger companies, middle market? Do small businesses fit in there? Like who normally gets the most value out of working with you and your team?
So I'm going to say the people who get the most value out of working with us, although we do work with a lot of startups from the get-go, the biggest issue is, how did they start up? Remember I mentioned having that $150,000. If that's you, call us from day one, because we can get you going right from the get-go. Most people, though, wait until they have some resources coming in. They're usually doing about $800,000 a year in total revenue, and then they reach out to us and we help them scale literally all the way up to $33 million a year in revenue. Like, we have systems for all size of home care businesses out there. We work a lot with private duty, which is private pay, where people are paying fee for service beyond what Medicare covers. We also work with a lot of folks that have Medicaid businesses. So just real quick for your audience, I don't know who knows what, but you have Medicare. Medicare is the insurance provider, and then you have Medicaid. Medicaid is for those who financially don't have resources. The government provides services for them, and home care is a piece that is covered by Medicaid. There are a lot of Medicaid businesses out there, and there are a lot of things that we do for those folks so that they can get a private pay arm going, so that they have two payer sources, private and government related, and it allows them to have the balance and flexibility to be able to continue to scale, to grow quickly, and do a lot of the operational things that we put in place, and help with the recruitment and retention of caregivers, which is the biggest challenge the industry is facing. There's simply not enough workforce to take care of all the people with need.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity there. A lot of opportunity. That more and more I'm hearing this. Not enough workforce to meet the demand, and the demand's going to go up. So love what you're saying there. So I have to say, Steve, it's been awesome having you on the show. I've learned a lot. I feel like my education, and I thought I knew a little bit about home care and what's going on. Now I feel like I'm much more prepared to even make some decisions that I have to make in my personal life in regards to, my aging parents. That being said, what's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for home care evolution? Like, where's the hurricane going next? What's next?
So there's two things here to the person who's watching, who, like yourself, they have an aging parent and are not sure what to do. I highly recommend picking up my book. You can go on Amazon and get it. It's called Why We Care, and it's subtitled Choosing the Right Home Care Agency. And so I put together this book. I'm the lead author. I have half a dozen clients of mine also. And so the first part of it is how to choose. And then the second part of it is almost like a chicken soup for the soul, where it's 20 some odd case studies of people with very unique situations, which, if you have a loved one in the hospital or you have a loved one that needs care, you can probably relate to a lot of the stories shared in here. It's all of the profits go to my nonprofit, the Institute for Dignity and Grace. So I don't make money on it. We use the Institute for Dignity and Grace as a resource to help people find care for their loved ones. And I've been doing that since 2016. On the flip side, for those of you who are looking to get into the home care business, or you have a home care business and you want to scale and grow it, you should come to the Home Care Evolution Conference. We put these conferences out twice a year. It is the Tony Robbins event of the home care industry. Everything scaling, operations, marketing and sales, recruitment, retention, financial, retirement planning, exit strategy planning, and so much more. They really are the quintessential event of the industry. And you can go to my website, homecareevolution.com, for information about the next event.
Oh, that's fantastic. And again, we'll put all of that information in the show notes. Just want to ask you one more time. So if people want to connect with you and your team overall, best way is the website, yes?
Yeah, homecareevolution.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. But if you go to homecareevolution.com, you'll find everything you need to know how to move forward.
Awesome. And again, we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time with Mission Matters, we're a platform that's all about bringing on entrepreneurs, executives, and experts and having them share their mission. Like, why do they do what they do? What gets them excited? What motivates them? How are they changing things in the marketplace and in the world? If that's the kind of content that you're into, we definitely welcome you to hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based entrepreneurs coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Steve, the Hurricane Weiss, it has been an honor having you on the show today. I'm wishing you much more continued success. Thank you.
I appreciate it very much, Adam. Take care and God bless you.